I have always wanted to moderate a debate. I really have. So I am so excited for this one. So they got me a little clock. They got me a buzzer. Okay, I'm gonna do it. So happy. Yes. Okay. All right. So here are the rules of the debate. We're going to touch on a bunch of questions from our megatrends. You each have 2 minutes to answer. And if you go over that 2 minutes, oh, there you go. All right. So you don't want to meet the wrath of my buzzer. All right. So question number 1. This is on that marquee megatrend that we were talking about with tourists giving up on the United States of America. Question: is geopolitical instability in the U.S. an opportunity to redirect global travelers, or will the U.S. remain resilient no matter what? Kershing, let's start with you.
I would start off by saying that from a geopolitical instability perspective, and I'm going to take that question a little bit out from the US first, that the impact definitely is there. We see it quite a bit. And just as far back as in November, when you see what happens with Japan and China, I was actually at IBTM when it happens, and you see the cessation of visa allocation of getting into Japan by 40%. And then you also see how flights are being cancelled almost overnight. And it's still happening now as we go into January. We see an immediate sort of like impact. I was actually standing at a booth with my team at IBTM, and that afternoon when it happened, we actually get a lot of Chinese buyers coming by the stand to basically say, I need to find an alternative quickly. I've got my corporate meetings, I've got my incentive group that is going to Japan, and I need to pivot. And that's real. The other thing that is interesting is we also was kind of looking at the airspace. So if you've been reading, am I 2 minutes? If you've been reading, just last week, the UK travel, Foreign Affairs actually issued travel warning. And I have to answer the question with regards to the safety of airspace. And it actually impacts quite a lot of destinations that are very popular, like Dubai, like Egypt, for example. And we actually study the impact of that as well in terms of what it means. So 2 points, I think. One, it's that from a Japan perspective, when we saw that happening with the pivoting, we also saw that actually some of the other source markets, like Taiwan grew by 150%. We saw that South Korea grew by double digit. Europe and US continue to actually be very important to them. So my question therefore is it a displacement or is it a diversification? And does that apply to the US? To your point, I think in terms of the double-digit drop in the arrivals into the US, it seems to have a longer-term sustained impact versus. I'm sorry, I did really badly at first question.
Okay, we'll do better next time. Okay.
Oh.
All right, Hazel, 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see what I can do. Simple answer, yes, absolutely. It is having an impact on the US and travel into the US from our core sales markets at Intrepid. So our core markets are Australia and New Zealand, we have the UK and Europe, and then we have Canada. Unsurprisingly, perhaps Canada is the most impacted. We are down 67% for Canadians traveling into the US.
67.
And I think 67, yeah. I know my son would be delighted by that too. So the Canadians, I think quite obviously, they're very, very close. They're seeing the biggest impact personally. So I think that's unsurprising. Australia and New Zealand are next, 34% down year on year. So this is 24 versus 25. And then the UK, European, probably the most resilient from our customers, down 23%. So we are absolutely seeing an impact, I think, of the geopolitical situation. Do I think that, like I'm being really efficient, do I think that it's going to be, a constant? Do I think it will change? Yes, I think it will change. I think we see situations evolving. I suspect when political situations change somewhat as well, there will be a resurgence. I think the World Cup will drive people to visit the US more than we would have seen perhaps had the World Cup not been taking place. Although, again, decisions just in the last week around some of the nationalities which are perhaps less welcomed by the American government may have an impact on that as well, because there's a number of countries in there that are taking part.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is having an impact.
Well, but follow up from the moderator. But do you think that it's come on. This is my buzzer. Okay. But do you think it's a sustain, like, do you think that this is a generational hit? Like, we'll talk not for all time, but like in generations, like even after the Trump administration leaves office, do you think the US is still gonna feel what is a very, very significant, hurt?
I think that we will probably not see this last for a generation. My feeling is when the administration changes, no matter which way the administration goes on either Republican or Democrat, I don't think we will see a sort of hangover as long as perhaps some of the more restrictive language and perhaps behaviors don't continue.
Okay, all right. So moving on, we're going to talk about OTAs now. So Dennis Shaw, who wrote a great megatrend about how the OTAs are kind of losing a little bit of their shine, especially with all of the new AI upstarts coming in. Question, are the OTAs still the industry's most powerful travel marketers? Kershing.
I would say so, but they morph into a different form. If you look at kind of the investment that they've been putting in from a AI perspective and the adoption of AI, and how they're kind of moving into the inspiration stage versus just being contented with the lower funnel conversion stage, they are chipping at basically the inspiration space. So as a destination marketers, for example, we used to kind of look at OTAs and say, that's where I'm going to go if I'm going to drive tactical short-term bursts for conversion. And I'll look at working with influencers for upper funnel. But they are actually going into that space much more. If you look at just Expedia, they are launching basically travel match as a new feature. I'm not sure whether it's here yet, but they definitely launched it in the US, where if you look at the picture from an influencer, they could match that actual picture to a travel product that you could buy. They are also launching Travel Shop, which is actually social commerce. So you actually see the social space also going into a commerce, and then you see the OTA going into really the inspiration space. So that's quite a bit going on. And then you also have the meta search like Skyscanner that's using AI to look at predictive modeling of flight prices, demand generation, and volume. So would they still be the most powerful in terms of the reach? I think there's no denying that they continue to dominate. The ability to pivot into different spaces, I think, will continue to make them a force to reckon with. For us as destination marketers, it's actually a great evolvement because it actually allows us to do much more full funnel versus having to manage upper funnel and then trying to attribute what's the conversion, what's the ROI, and then lower funnel conversion. So I think this merging does pan out well for DMOs like ourselves in terms of how we look at where we're spending the money.
You did a great job there.
I improved.
Fantastic. Very nice. Okay, Hazel, same question. Are OTAs still the best travel marketers?
I think I would say commodity level in terms of flights, accommodation, sort of, individual products, their volumes speak for themselves. We still have Booking.com with sort of millions upon millions upon millions. So I don't think that will change overnight, certainly. I think the opportunity for brands like Intrepid, tour operators, particularly with the advent of AI, is the ability to sort of lean into the way that AI is categorizing search results in a slightly different way than Google. So for example, we know that AI over-indexes sort of brand mentions, so earned media. So having your brand mentioned in reputable media and sort of talking about what you do and doing it well over-indexes in terms of those results. Likewise, for example, with ChatGPT, and all of them are slightly different, there is a very high reliance on Reddit, for example, which again is a really sort of conversational platform, which is interesting in its own right, because to begin with, brands would have sort of almost seen Reddit as quite a kind of almost a wild west of, what's being said. But actually now the opportunity is that because conversations are being read for context, still relevance, still frequency of mention, but we're starting to have to build trust and word of mouth in a digital space in a much more meaningful way as well. So that kind of earned media, that sort of customer advocacy is going to be more and more important for brands, but it's also an opportunity, I think, with AI, just because of the way that it does take search and read it in a slightly different way. Yeah, and that would be my take.
Also exceptional on the timing. Okay, so a follow-up question. We'll start with you this time. This is our last one on AI for now. Do travelers really want to hand decisions over to AI agents? Are they actually going to do that?
I think there will always be early adopters who will.
Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But no, I don't believe people are ready to hand everything over. I think that, again, the things that take a long time and that are very sort of, what flight times, how long do they take, what's my layover time, where do I want to stop, all of these kind of things. If AI can do that for people in 2 seconds flat, I have no doubt that people will hand that over as quick as a flash. Would I like to think that people want to delve a little bit more into what they're actually doing on the ground and really look for sort of something, look for expertise and sort of local knowledge? I'd like to hope so. Certainly, that's our experience at the moment, but time will tell.
What do you think? Do you think travelers will actually hand over the keys to the kingdom and let AI book?
I do think so from a upper funnel inspiration and consideration stage, because AI has improved so much over the last 2 years. And I think the trust level of AI and how it's being deployed in different ways, whether it's in education, in productivity, has kind of proven themselves. So the trust level has gone fundamentally up quite a bit over the last 2 years. And if you think about, when I was reflecting on some of this, it's like how many of my Netflix series are actually because it was recommended to me and I diligently watch it and I actually liked it because it kind of knew that I liked similar thread of genre of series. And I think we will get there.
What's your genre? What's this? What is it? I have to know. Is it like spy or horror?
No, it's rom-com. Sorry.
All right.
And a little dash of reality program. It's like no-brainer stuff when I unwind. But I do think that you will get there in terms of travel inspiration and travel consideration from an upper funnel perspective. And a clear-cut example was when I was planning a trip with my 3 boys, this recent one, I just went to ChatGPT and said, I don't care where I'm going. I don't want to travel more than 3 hours. I've got 3 active boys. I'm looking for this. I'm agnostic as far as destination.
Yeah.
And there comes the whole list of places. So I really do not care where I go anymore. So I think that is going to be where it's going to go. And consumer, based on comfort level, I was just going to add on.
I should give you a few seconds because I waylaid with my Netflix question, but carry on.
Yeah, I would just like to say that, however, it doesn't replace the lower funnel, the good people like Intrepid Travel and the good tour operators that we work with, especially in the current climate of so much volatility on the geopolitical scene.
Yeah.
Where I think this is where the trust in the fact that someone that knows the space, has the network, is going to be able to get you out if something does happen, become exceptionally important. So I don't think any of our trade partners are going any time away, but from an upper funnel inspiration space, I'm putting my dollar on it.
Okay. So this is my opinion. I think the word authentic is overused in travel. My question is, do travelers genuinely, and I mean genuinely, want authentic local experiences? Or is this an example of the say-do? They always say they do, but you know what, they really don't. What do you think? Let's start with you, Kershing.
I think the word authentic experience is a bit overrated sometimes, but I also feel like it manifests in different ways. And it's not just the way that sometimes you think about it. And I'll take that in the context of, let's say, a destination like Singapore. We are very much a city destination, no different from London and New York. And what constitutes authentic experience for a city destination? I think also the way traveler consume a city destination like New York or London or Singapore is very different. I think there's something to be said about the familiarity of knowing that, the tube works. I know exactly which restaurant I want to go to every time when I visit. There's a high level of repeat visitorship as well for some of this cosmopolitan city. And actually, the city itself then becomes an enabler for you to really enjoy your city destination. And I think that's very different. However, you need to remain true and authentic to who you are as a city destination. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, I'm going to go into a full culture immersion of what it means. That could possibly be very different if you're talking about a trip to Morocco versus going to Tromso. But for city destination like ourselves, it is really about living and breathing the vibe of what the city stands for. And what constitute that is the people that live and work in the city itself. So to us, that's very important. And that remains to be our mantra as we plan tourism, to make sure that at the end of the day, the people that work and live in Singapore have to stand true to what the offering is. And then we become the backdrop and enabler to what you think is the authentic experience or what you want to get out of it. So
I'm going to go with no.
okay.
Hazel, same question, 2 minutes. Do people really want authentic experiences?
Yes, I do believe they do, but I think authentic comes with a caveat. I think if I look at the growth that we've had, it points to the fact that what people want is to go a little bit deeper into destinations and not just sort of fly in, spend a few days doing something that they could do at home and fly back out. So I think, there is definitely, or I would like to think that, certainly the trends that we're seeing would suggest that people do want to dig a little deeper, want to be a little bit more involved. But authentic's different from a cultural experience. So quite often, the tour leader in our capacity is the sort of bridge between an experience in a country which is authentic, but also one which gives a deeper meaning and understanding to a culture. Because a traditional experience, a traditional cultural experience, may not be authentic to the young people who live in that country, for example. They, for example, take Marrakesh. You have swathes of young people who live a very modern life within Marrakesh, they don't necessarily shop in the Riad and they don't necessarily spend time doing traditional crafts. But actually, when you go to Morocco as a visitor, actually another part of seeing Morocco is understanding that culture and that heritage and understanding the kind of history as well. So authentic does mean different things, and I think it can. And actually, as I say, the tour leader for us is that bridge between. They can speak to what life is like day to day in a country because they come from that country, but they can also help travellers understand the history and the rich kind of cultural heritage of a country as well, which is also vitally important. So I think it's a blend of the two.
Okay. So next we're going to go to my favorite megatrend of the year. It was written by Luke Martin. Luke, are you here? Yep. Oh, okay. So Luke wrote this one, and it's my favorite because to me, it was counterintuitive until we dug into it, and that is about the rise of the mocktail or the popularity of non-alcoholic drinks. I thought it would be like a terrible thing for F&B. I thought, restaurants would lose money. Turns out, absolutely not. It's great for them. Margins are lower, all that good stuff. Higher. So my question is this kind of, it's not so much a health kick, but it really is. People really are drinking less alcohol. Is it a fad? Something that's going to come and go in 5 years? Or is this really here to stay? Like, human beings on planet Earth are not going to drink as much alcohol as they once did. Hazel, you go first.
I suspect it's here to stay. I think the fact that it does over-index at the moment with the younger population suggests that they may not ever sort of move into that category of alcohol drinkers, which older generations probably went through as almost a rite of passage.
Yeah.
I also think that the sort of the plethora of non-alcoholic spirits that have much more complex flavors and things just makes it so much easier for people to make choices which are not alcohol. And as you say, it used to be it would be £2 for a fizzy drink, versus you can still charge almost the same for a mocktail these days as you could for a cocktail.
You
so
can
I think
charge, they do charge the same.
Definitely it's definitely something where the market is moving towards it, and I think. Yeah, I do feel like it's a trend here to stay. I think, and more in that older generation as well, are just sort of, I think, more for health reasons and for just understanding a little bit more about the disbenefits of alcohol are making people think twice. Do I think it'll disappear? No. But the fad, it's not a fad.
Not a fad. What do you think?
Same. I think it's here to stay as well, for all the good reasons that Hazel has just mentioned. we do think that when you kind of look at also the investment that's gone into things like some of the health trend, whether is it eating clean, whether is it protein-based diet, whether gym membership has gone up, it clearly kind of signaled to a trend that the Gen Z is definitely taking this in a much more sustained, and it goes beyond just a social media fad from their perspective. We also see from, let's say, a Singapore perspective, a lot of our stakeholders are starting to pivot as well. So the mocktail menu is just as extensive as the cocktail ones. And to your point, the charges largely the same. And also a lot of alcohol-free beers are coming up as well. So actually the big beverage companies are actually also kind of looking at the trend. Does it pan well? I think it does place quite a bit to our strength from a Singapore perspective, that we don't see the spending on F&B holistically going down. They're just substituting it for something else. Maybe it's a good meal at a restaurant, for example. So holistically, I think they will still spend in F&B. It's just that the category of spend is slightly different. The other thing that's really quite important to us is, for example, music festivals and events. And the programming of those needs to change as well. Because I think traditionally there's a huge reliance on the alcohol sales to basically be a key generator for festivals and events that we are familiar with. I think it's interesting to see how that space is going to morph and what are the new kind of festival and events that kind of plays a little bit more to this whole consciousness of, well, being healthy and mindfulness. So I do think that it will stay.
It's where the California soberness comes in, perhaps. I went to Raffles not too long ago, and to test this theory out, I had a Virgin Singapore Sling. It was delicious. And then I went down to Spy Bar, and I had a non-alcoholic James Bond, like, certified martini. It was awful. It was just terrible. So I think you can get away with it in some of them. They haven't got the gin quite right yet.
So are you on the trend too?
What?
Are you on the trend too? Are you not going out? Are you going alcohol free too?
Yeah. I hardly ever drink anymore. I got this now I'm just now we're just like sitting around talking. I got this Aura ring for Christmas, and it's amazing what one drink will do to my numbers. And like, it's a competition when I wake up. Like, I want to know, I want to do better. And like, anyway. Okay.
I do think that this science-based technology in allowing humans to actually be more aware of the effect of what you consume is also the indicator that's actually shifting.
Yeah. All right. Last question. We've only got 2 minutes left. I've got lots of timers here, so we're going to give it our all. Is live tourism a real engine for destinations? You probably have a very interesting view on this. So when a concert comes to Singapore, when Taylor Swift comes to Singapore, does that leave your city with real money, or is it just kind of like she comes, she goes, it's not... It doesn't do much.
Real money, baby.
Is it sustainable money though? Like, does it keep going?
I guess the question is, it has to be back on a longer term strategy. So when we kind of look at planning for tourism in Singapore, for those of you who are familiar with Singapore, we like to plan, right? We plan everything. So when we kind of look at launching our tourism master plan for 2040, we kind of look at the event strategy and what does it do for us from an economic impact perspective. And like you said, it has to be sustained. It has to be over multiple years. And it is also not something that you kind of get a Taylor Swift for one time and hoping that you get a spike. And that's it. So it really calls for a couple of things. One, to look at from an infrastructure perspective, does the country has what it takes to be able to have a longer sustaining strategy? Two, from a hygiene factor perspective, because there's quite a bit of safety in terms of holding, let's say, big mega event. Your ingress, outgress, your traffic, your subway, and everything else. The city comes alive when it comes to very big event, whether is it the Formula One or Taylor Swift. So there has to be a sustained strategy and a sustained growth in terms of how this is going to pipe in. But as to whether this generate real value in the longer term perspective, it does, because if you have a longer term strategy around it, and it does overall generate higher spending by your visitors. Two, it differentiates a destination from another, especially if you're a city destination like us, that kind of plays to the lifestyle offering as a key pillar. Three, it does give consumer that urgency to book. So I was talking to maybe you about the fact that how many people has told me that, oh, I would love to go to Singapore, it's in my bucket list, but it stayed in the bucket list for 10 years. So I don't want that, right? I want to give them the reason to say, no, 2027 is when you need to come. Okay, I'll take that as last year, 2025, my pitch was, Elton John is coming to sing at Formula One. If this is the year that you're going to watch a Formula One race and watch maybe his last concert, Singapore is where you're going to book a ticket. This gives me the impetus to say that there is urgency for you to make the decision and so that I don't stay in the bucket list. So for a lot of these reasons, it becomes a really... It's important, so yes.
Okay, what live tourism is probably a little bit different for Intrepid, but do you think it makes real sustaining, long-lasting money for the places that, you know, are lucky enough to have it come to them?
I suspect it does. I think there was a lot of published numbers this year about how much the Taylor Swift concert brought to various places.
Yeah.
I would suggest that potentially live tourism in that way tends to focus bringing tourism to cities that already have quite considerable numbers of tourism. So arguably, could it lead to elements of over-tourism in places?
Yeah.
Short term, maybe. I think there's definitely benefits from it. I think if in an ideal world, I think destinations would look at how could you extend people's stay? How could you give them reasons to want to stay beyond the weekend and actually get out of the city and experience other things and kind of disperse that economic benefit a little bit further and stay for a little bit longer. So I think that would be the ideal scenario coming from live tourism, is that people start to see, you know, it's a way to make really good use of annual leave, plus get this really exciting live experience whilst you're there and get to explore a destination. But yeah, I mean, undoubtedly it brings money into destinations.
Fantastic. Hazel, Kershing, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was our first great debate.